From one big story to another, we're going to turn back to the crisis in Gaza. A new 72-hour ceasefire between Israel and Hamas seems to be holding, at least for now. It's supposed to last until Wednesday, ahead of talks in Cairo, meant to hammer out some sort of a more permanent truce to end almost a month of fighting. Although there are many key players involved in these talks, there is one actor our next guest says we need to talk more about. Tony Badran is a research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. So what are we not talking about when we're covering this crisis, Tony?
Well, the one actor that was kind of missing in all of this is really Iran, and it's a fascinating and central actor in this crisis because, number one, it's Hamas's only military supplier. And so all the technology that we saw on display in Gaza, whether it's the tunnels, whether it's the long-range rockets, all of this comes from Iran. And the Iranians are boasting about it, that they're the ones who supplied it.
So is it possible to have a real ceasefire for an extended period of peace unless the issues with Iran are addressed?
Well, basically, any durable ceasefire in Gaza will have to address the issue of demilitarization, right? So preventing these technologies and longer-range rockets that have threatened Israeli cities from actually entering, which is why the Israelis are focusing on that.
Do you think that's possible? Because that's something the Israelis say that they want, is to demilitarize the entire zone, take away all the weapons, take away all the tunnels. Is it possible to do that? Is it a reachable goal?
Well, to some extent, right? I mean, it depends on the one hand, the Israelis were able to clean up a lot of the tunnels. They will admit readily that they didn't get them all, but they got a lot of it. They degraded their capabilities, and now they have to rely on a regional setup with Egypt, namely, to control more effectively what comes into the Strip.
There's been a lot of criticism over the last several weeks of Secretary Kerry and his role in trying to broker some sort of a ceasefire because he engaged with Qatar and Turkey as a way to engage with Hamas. Right. Now there are those that say this is a new opportunity for the United States. What's the best possible scenario for us in this conflict as far as looking at the ceasefire and the terms?
Right. The first thing is not to undermine Egypt, which is clearly Israel's preferred partner in this. So any temptation to install sort of a round-table approach that includes more stakeholders, be it Turkey, be it Qatar, or anyone else for that matter, is likely to be resisted by both Israel and Egypt, as well as by serious regional actors like Saudi Arabia that back the Egyptian government. But the most important thing is to keep in mind what Hamas's objective in all of this was. Hamas's relationships with Iran had been strained for the last couple of years over Syria. They did this war primarily in order to reorient their ship and all the factions behind lining up with Iran again. Now they have achieved that. The question is to make sure that they don't get all the technology and the long-range rockets necessary back into the Strip.
One of the things that Hamas says that it wants, and again, we're talking about negotiating with a terrorist group as realized as such by the United States government. They want an airport in Gaza. They want the seaports open again. They want free travel between Gaza and the West Bank. Do they get any of that?
Well, they're not going to get an airport and a seaport. That much I can probably guarantee. But with regard to the opening of the crossings, there might be willingness on the part of Egypt and Israel to do so, provided that certain conditions are met. With regard to disarming Hamas or at least stabilizing the security situation.
And a quick final question on that. Because of the Palestinian Authority that's ruling the West Bank, through these talks, can we empower the right actors so that this could be a breakthrough for a broader agreement that brings greater peace to the region, or is that just thinking too optimistically about what could come from this conflict?
I believe so. I think the administration, there are indications that the administration wants that wants to use this as a threshold for something bigger. I don't think that's likely. I think the idea of getting the PA, the Palestinian Authority, in charge of the crossings in Israel and on the Egyptian side as well, is fraught with danger because it can bring us back to a situation close to Lebanon, where Hezbollah used the UN Security Council Resolution 1701 as a cover and hid behind the government, but was still able to maintain its armed status. Of course, the real key variable in this case is that you have Egypt on the other side of the border here, which is not friendly to Hamas at all.
And interesting to see this new government in Egypt assume a new role, and it'll be interesting to see again what comes from here. We always have to bring it broadly to the peace talks, and so we'll end there. Tony, it's great to have you, though, on the program.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.